This is a show about facing fear, unlocking courage, and taking action.
Courage isn't necessarily a daunting thing.
It's going to give you more purpose. It's going to give you more drive.
It feels like making a courageous decision is going to get you closer to who you aspire to be.
It's knowledge plus faith plus action equals courage.
To really thrive is to establish a voice and a perspective that people consider to be singular, so that I am not just one of many people who are interchangeable at a magazine, but I am a singular voice. I create scarcity for myself. That takes a lot of work.
Remember the scene in E.T. where Elliot just starts dropping down the Reese's Pieces, and like all E.T. has to do is like one by one pick up the trail, just follow the trail. And I kid you not, when I think about my guests today, like when I think about your magic, this is what I think of. Like Jason Feifer, like you are the editor-in-chief of an entrepreneur magazine. But if you're not subscribe to One Thing Better, please stop what you're doing. Pause the podcast. Jason, let's get this out of the way. Where can somebody go sign up for this?
Okay, you're going to have to continue to unpack the ET metaphor, which I wasn't totally following, but thank you for the tee up on One Thing Better. My newsletter is called One Thing Better. Each week, one way to be more successful and satisfied at work so you can build a career or company you love. You can get that at onethingbetter.email. That's a web address. Plug it into a browser. onethingbetter.email. Okay, tell me about ET.
All right, let's roll. So when I read your stuff, I'm like, wow, this guy is like deconstructing the salad for me, and he's holding my hand, and it's step by step, and it's deeply thoughtful. And to me, that's what I meant. It's maybe Elliot wasn't that intentional, but I like the idea of ET. Like it's kind of there piece by piece by piece, and you're taking these things that we're all dealing with that are primal, and you're deconstructing them for us. And it's like your process of thinking. And it's like, yeah, that makes sense. Oh, and I'll give an example on my side. Like a lot of times I'll hear from leaders that they're almost surrendering when our phone finally rings, they're like, we know we need to change.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, well, that's kind of like, I wouldn't say it back to them, but it's almost a very lazy answer. It's like, let's deconstruct that a little bit more. Like what needs to change? Like, is there a clarity problem? Is there a conviction problem? Is there a capabilities upskill problem? Mm-hmm. So when I read your stuff, I was like, wow, I really love your ability to step outside of yourself and like look back at the issue and then start to like, oh, if you just do this first, do this, and then go to the next delicious piece of chocolate.
I appreciate that. Okay. A slightly tortured metaphor, but I'm going to accept it. So yeah, well, look, I think that this is just, I guess, how my brain works, but I like to approach everything from the starting point of, okay, so this is true, which is to say, this is how I feel, or this is how I react to something, or this is how someone else reacted to something. So that is like the truth of the statement. Like that is the thing that happened, or this is a challenging thing. Okay, well, like, and then let us work backwards from what logic got us there, and therefore what logic can get us out of there. Because the world is not actually chaos theory. The world is built off of like individualized logic chains. Every decision that someone makes is built off of their own logic. Now, you and I might have different logics, and therefore we might start in the same place and end up in different places, but we didn't do that arbitrarily, and we didn't do it randomly. We did it because we were building off of our own understandings and assumptions and context, and therefore leading to decisions that then drive outcomes. So why don't we just step back and say, whatever complex problem we're dealing with is actually pretty simple. It's just about breaking it up into small, understandable steps and understanding the logic behind everything. And if we can do that, then we can do anything.
How often have you stepped back and looked at your own logic and then went, excuse my French here, oh shit, my logic is now, the glitch is real, and I'm on to this next version of logic?
Well, all the time, in ways big and small. Sometimes in a situation we might not understand what the most important part of a situation is. And then as we try to grow, maybe we try to optimize for what is ultimately the less valuable part of whatever it is that we're trying to do. I mean, this sounds really abstract. I'll just give you like a really specific, super random and almost dumb example of this. But
look, I went with ET recently.
Yeah, no. So we're right. So the right. The nowhere to go but up. So I post every day on LinkedIn, and the primary kind of post that I make is what I think of as an advertising breakdown. I pick like a commercial, and then I upload the commercial, the video of the commercial, and then I do a breakdown of why it worked, like what marketing strategy was behind it. And I do all those myself. Literally, my kids get out the door at 7:30 in the morning, and then I sit down and I like write a LinkedIn post and try to hit send by 8:30. And I was looking for efficiencies in how to do this better. And so let me tell you how I was finding the ads. I was finding the ads by scrolling around on LinkedIn, or I mean on Instagram. I was scrolling around on Instagram because there are all these like Instagram accounts that just post advertisements. And so I was looking for interesting ones that would just pop up and that seemed to be popular because a lot of people had watched them. And like I would see one, I'd be like, oh, I bet that would do well on LinkedIn. It seems to have done well on Instagram, and let me now assess it and like offer some smart, intelligent thing to say about it. I wanted to find some way to make this more efficient. And so I had asked my assistant, hey, can you just come up with a ton of commercials? Like just find great commercials that I can write about and spend a little time researching to see if like the person behind it ever like said anything about it, or like what's the marketing strategy. Because I would really like to optimize for insider insights into like what was going on behind these commercials. So he sent me a ton of stuff, and I've been working on it. And as I've been working on it, this completely unrelated thought was occurring to me, which is, my LinkedIn is going down. Like something about what I'm doing on LinkedIn now is not working. And at first I was like, maybe the LinkedIn algorithm is changing, and like these posts that I've been doing are not actually the thing that's going to work on LinkedIn anymore. And truly, like weeks of this, and I was like, oh man, this is really a bummer. Like LinkedIn isn't working as much anymore as I'm working off of my assistant's thing. And then I had like a bolt of lightning hit me yesterday. And that bolt of lightning was, hey, are you optimizing for the wrong thing? Like I had my assistant put together a bunch of advertisements, and I would really told him to optimize for finding ads that he could find some research on, right? Some article about the ad, some interview that somebody given about the ad. And so I was writing these posts that were like really interesting and well-informed, but what I was missing is that they had not yet been selected by like what was trending on Instagram. And what, right? In other words, like he was finding them by like doing research, like, best ads of the year, instead of flipping around on Instagram and just seeing like which ads for whatever crazy reason are the ones that just drive viewership on Instagram. And I realized, wait a second, I'm optimizing wrong. Like I'm optimizing for the thing that I think is valuable, which is like interesting insights that are like first degree from the people who made the ads. Whereas actually the thing I need to be optimizing for is just that the ads have already proven themselves in a marketplace of ideas in a social context, because they already did well on Instagram. Therefore, they're likely to do well on LinkedIn. So the last 2 days, I'm talking to you on like Tuesday, March 4th, whenever you'll run this. But like Monday and Tuesday, I went back to my old format. I was like, whatever my assistant sent me, I'm not looking at it anymore. I'm just going to start scrolling around on Instagram and like make it like that. And boom, 2 home runs have I posted on LinkedIn in 2 days. So here is a place where like I just started to think that something was really important in this process. And it turns out that it wasn't actually what was most important to my audience. And for a while, I had optimized for the wrong thing. And we do that all the time.
I love that story. And to me, the first 2 words that come to mind are efficiencies and then effectiveness. And when does one get in the way of the other one, right? It's like, so as you start to crack open your own process again and look at like, oh, shoot, you got to run around all the bases. Like, where do you think as you're running around the bases, where do you really hit your stride?
I think it's probably on the 7th time that I've run around the base, and now I'm heading back to first again, like yeah. I have this theory about people, and my theory is that everybody has the same skill, and that skill is pattern recognition. That's the thing that humans are good at. Humans are good at pattern recognition, but every human is better at recognizing a different pattern. So if we can understand what we as an individual, what our brains, for whatever reason, are, what pattern we're really good at recognizing, then we can start to put ourselves in a position for success. But the only way to do that is to round the bases many, many, many times. And so I have found for me, for example, that if I can run through like one or two successful versions of whatever it is that I want to do, then I can look back at it and dissect it and say, I see what I did here and I see what I did there and I see how this was structured and I see how that was communicated. And now that I see that, I can do it again. So I need to stumble my way in to a good version of something. And then from there, I can replicate it. And that means that I have to tolerate being bad at it a bunch of times first. Ryan Reynolds once told me, to be good at something, you have to be willing to be bad. And I love that line, and it's true. And so if I can tolerate being bad long enough to finally stumble into the good version of this, then I know how to do it again.
Yeah, I love that line too. One of my partners, Nicole Miller, she talks about giving people the courage to be a beginner again. And it's like, good. Yeah, it's like, yeah, like let's get back out of that mountain. And even if it's a bunny slope, like take it down. Another writing line that I like this holds true to me is, and I didn't say this, it was like, and sadly, I don't know who said it, so I should probably go do that work. But like, I write so I can think what I know. And like, that feels true to me. Like, I trust my writing process. And like you, it's a puzzle. And I don't know, to your point, am I running around the bases again? Does it come at first, second? As long as I'm willing to go to the bases and run around the bases, I know I will get there. I was really curious to hear you say, though, you're like, I got to get the kids out of the house.
Yeah.
And by 8:30, which seems pretty effective, by the way, that like, yourself well enough to know if you give yourself a block of an hour, your process for thinking have you always been like this? Or is it like, will you wake up in the middle of the night and be like, oh, that's interesting. Let me write this down, park this, and I'll see you tomorrow.
In other words, am I constantly on?
Well, I think there's two parts. When do you do your best thinking? Mm-hmm. And then your process, is it habitually that first hour of the morning you're off and running and you're strongest then? Yeah.
So I definitely, I think to be really effective at whatever it is that you do, you need to understand when your brain works the best. And that'll be different for all of us. My brain works the best in the morning when I almost think about it as, when your computer has been on for a month and a half because nobody turns their computer off, and then it starts to get really slow, and then you restart it, and whatever has happened, I'm not a computer guy, but I'm going to say words that I don't understand. It clears the cache and some other things happen, and then it moves fastest upon that reboot. For me, that's my brain. By the end of the day, my brain is clogged with things, and I am thinking a little slower. And then in the morning, I am fresh. And so I schedule my days around that freshness. So I do not schedule meetings to the best of my ability before 11 noon if I can help it. And that's when I get all of my creative work done. So I start with the LinkedIn post. Then I generally move on to whatever project is waiting for me next, usually on Wednesdays and Thursdays. That's my newsletter. That's when I write the newsletter. Other times it might be making a podcast, or it might be, working on some material for a talk or something, whatever it is. And I'm optimizing my brain for that time. And once you recognize that, then you have to respect it. I definitely think the fastest then. And I used to make the mistake of not respecting that. And I would say by the end of the day, I got to get my newsletter done. I'm going to sit down. And what would end up happening is that I would spend a lot of time working very slowly on some crap that the next morning when my brain is better, I'll read and I'll be like, well, this is garbage. And then I would throw it out. So why don't we just save the trouble and not do that? I'm just going to put that off for tomorrow, and 5 to 6 p.m. when my brain is pretty fried, that's a good time to take care of some administrative work or stuff that just doesn't require freshness.
If there's a pie chart and like we're just throwing up one slide on Jason's life,
Yeah.
what gets the percentages on like think time, right time? It sounds like you've got keynotes, prep, like how does it all look?
Well, it's different every day. I've created a problem for myself, and I'm actively trying to work through that problem. The problem is that I've taken on way too many things. I have entrepreneur, which is a big job. I have a lot of personal brand stuff. I am advising a lot of companies. I co-founded a coaching is not really the right word, a private network for consumer packaged goods founders called CPG Fast Track. I'm involved in a lot of different things. And as a result of that, my days get really stacked back to back to back with unrelated things. So for you and I are talking it's my time, it's 1:48 p.m. right now when we're talking. Like, this is the third or fourth call that I've had in a row, and none of them are even remotely related to each other. They're all totally different things, which means that my brain is constantly shifting and I'm not giving myself any reset time, right? And as soon as you and I get off the phone, I'm on a call with the PR team for a celebrity that I'm interviewing tomorrow. And that interview that I'm going to do with a celebrity is right after a lunch that I'm doing about something completely unrelated. I'm not giving myself time to reset, and that's a problem, and I've got to fix that. But I am pushing myself because, of course, reset time means that there are fewer things that I can squeeze into the day. And so I'm living with that tension, and I'm trying to solve it.
Rocking chair moment time. So when you think about the time machine, let's humor ourselves and say we actually survive what's going out in the world right now. And it's four decades from now, and you are on a rocking chair and you're just kind of looking back at it all. What would you want to be most proud of with all of this stuff that you're juggling?
The thing that I want is to be proud of having created a foundation for myself of things that I built and loved that were grown out of my own abilities and that afforded me the life and the experiences that I wanted. And that's really what I'm pushing towards. Like I see, a big motivating factor for me, perhaps the kind of the inception factor for me, is that I have a career, I'm still in that career, in media where my work wasn't my own, write for a magazine, they own that work, and where my voice wasn't my own. Get hired at a magazine, and generally you're speaking in the magazine's voice. And I realized that to really thrive is to start to do these things myself, is to establish a voice and a perspective that people consider to be singular, so that I am not just one of many people who are interchangeable at a magazine, but I am a singular voice. I create scarcity for myself, because when you create scarcity, people want it more and they're willing to pay for it more. That's the reason people pay me to do keynote talks right now, is because I'm not just one of a bunch of people they could put on stage. I'm this guy and they wanted this guy. That takes a lot of work. I am currently playing a lot of cards at the same time to figure out what is the best assessment the best assortment of those ownable things that I can stand upon while still being at Entrepreneur, which, is not a company that I own, but that has given me an amazing platform and that I found a really good, symbiotic relationship with, right? Things that are good for Entrepreneur are good for me. Things that are good for me are good for Entrepreneur. That's great. But, what do I actually want at the rocking chair? What I want is to think, what great experiences I had, what great travels I had, what great friendships I made, what great interesting things I was able to do, what great fears I overcame. That's what I want. It's not about even the individual things that I'm building right now. It's about what those things afford me that matter.
I'm glad you brought up fears, because that's kind of where we're going. And let me just say, I know we don't know each other, but you're very easy to root for.
Thank you.
I wholeheartedly agree that I followed Jason. No knock to where you're working.
No. Yeah.
I also do believe that we all have to figure out a way to juggle the business that we're in, being a media business and a technology business. You're kind of all of those now.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm very curious when you think of the you business, right? And again, maybe you don't have to tell me exactly precisely what that is. And I want to give you some love because I know, as you said, I'm one of many. And like maybe I don't perfectly align with your objectives. So I appreciate you coming on the show and giving us a little of you time. There's a famous proverb that fear and courage are kin. You don't get to one without the other. So as you step back and think about like the largest fear, is it the scalability? Is it the scarcity? Is it deciding that's where Jason should play? Do you have or is it a podium? Is there a gold, silver, and bronze way to look at your fears?
Well, you're asking about fear in a really interesting, big, abstract, summarizing way. I mean, I think that the thing that I'm most afraid of, just to be like existential, I mean, it could be like death, but we don't do that. The thing that I think I'm most afraid of is using my time wrong. I'm very, very conscious of, which is funny because I also don't feel like I'm the best manager of my own time, but I think every day I wake up, I think like there are incredible experiences that I could have. And if I don't have them at the end of the day, that's like one less day in my life to have had those experiences. And in a way, I am making a calculated sacrifice at this phase of my career, which is to say that I'm in a very interesting moment in my particular career where I have built a lot for myself, and I've become, for at least, some people, enough people, a person that they know, a name that they know, and, who produces things that they recognize and like, which is amazing. That's an amazing thing. But I'm still also at a brand and hold a title that opens every door. So now those things stretch me very, very thin, because to do both of those well is like a full-time job in and of itself. And now I'm trying to do both. So I'm basically making a calculation, which is like for now, but definitely not forever. I'm going to be okay with my kids are out the door at 7:30. And instead of taking a nice walk, which is what I'd like to be doing, or getting coffee with a friend, which is what I'd like to be doing, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to write a stupid LinkedIn post, and then I'm going to write a newsletter, and then I'm going to make a podcast, and right? Because at some point I won't have to do all of that, because at some point those things will like click into self-sustaining, like a self-sustaining ecosystem. And some of the stuff I'm going to say that doesn't drive my needs anymore, and I'm going to drop that. I'm not going to do that podcast. I'm not going to make that thing anymore. I'm not going to commit myself to that, whatever it is. And I'm going to have what feels like that core foundation. Right now I feel like I have a lot of things that are clicking, but that I don't have like one coherent way to assemble them all together. But what I really want to get to is the place where I feel like I did the work. I ran that marathon so that I can now have those experiences and be less tied to all this stuff.
I see you doing the work, and it's intentional, and it's not that you're leaping fully to, but you're putting yourself in a position to do that. I know we're kind of nearing time here, and I appreciate you giving us some of your brain power here.
I appreciate you.
So if you were going to take a step back really quickly, I'm putting you on the spot a little bit, but
Sure.
That's what we do.
Yeah.
If you were going to write a one thing better from your lens on how to help someone be just a little bit more courageous, how would you go about helping them, throw down the Reese's Pieces here so they can go follow that trail?
Okay. Well, I mean, obviously there's a lot to define there. This is how I start to approach these things so first we have to start to define things. We have to define courageous. Then we have to define the opposite of that. What is the thing that they are doing now that isn't being defined as courageous? And then I would think, well, okay, well then what is the outcome of courageous? Like courageous by itself, there's no point in being courageous just for the sake of courageous, right? The courage has to lead to some kind of benefit in the way in which you would say, like great marketing isn't about solutions. It's about understanding the benefits that people actually desire when they wake up in the morning that your solution can help get them to. So courage by itself, right? Like we don't want to think of anything. We don't want to think of courage. We don't want to think of risk taking. We don't want to, like, none of this is like for the sake of it. It's for the outcome. So now the next thing I want to know is, what is the thing that you are not doing that you might attribute to a lack of courage. And then I would want to try to figure out what is the way to get to that thing that you want that doesn't go through whatever your roadblock is. Now, that's all really abstract because I don't have like specifics, but if you and I were to sit down and you were to say to me, like, I have a courage problem. And I was like, well, what does that mean? What do you mean I have a courage problem? And, that's what I would want to do. I'd want to kind of get your specifics and I'd want to try to understand, like, let's get away from the framing and let's just try to understand what you actually want out of your life. And then let's just figure out how to get it. And then later, if you want to call that courage, you can.
Love it. I have so much to add that I won't in the spirit of time, with the exception of courage is a journey word. It is undeniably a journey word. It is. Yeah. It's kind of needed in the messy middle. I've definitely been like, it's not the pursuit of happiness. It's the pursuit is happiness. Mm-hmm. So even as you're in it for yourself, like, enjoy the ride. And how awesome is it that you get to go? I'm excited to see where you take this thing and where you go. Anything we could do as a community to support you and help you?
Oh, I mean, you've done it. You've told people about the work that I do, and I can't ask for anything more. I mean, like, I don't think that anyone should ever be doing anything for me, but if they can at least help me reach people, and then it's on me to be useful to those people, and it's on me to win those people over, then, that's as good as it gets.
All right. Last one, quick answer if you want.
Sure.
Do you see yourself as a courageous person? I'm seeing the pontification is here.
Yeah. Well, I think that with a lot of these things, and by these things, I'm just going to mean like any kind of descriptor that some people want to identify with and some people don't identify with. I think that the way in which an individual thinks about themselves might be very different from the way that other people think about themselves, that people think about them. Like, for example, I don't think of myself as a creative person, but people think of me as creative. I don't really think of myself as a courageous person, but I guess people might see me as courageous. Like, because to me, it's just, like, I am doing things now that other people might say, oh, I wouldn't have the courage to do that. But I didn't either at the start. I like inched my way into it. So when I get on stage in front of like, a couple thousand people, like I didn't start from nothing there. I inched my way into it to the point where I can do that without it being scary. I've taken a bunch of risks in my career, but like before I took some big ones, I took really small ones. So that doesn't feel like courage to me, because when I think of courage, I think of somebody doing something that I just couldn't even imagine doing. But I guess that's kind of the way in which we perceive everybody.
Jason Feifer, appreciate you, man. Thanks for coming on. Stay in touch. I'll stay in touch and keep rolling. Good luck with everything.
Absolutely. Hey, I really appreciate it. Thank you for spending time with my work and for the thoughtful questions. It's been great.
You got it, man.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Courageous Podcast. If you enjoy the show, don't forget to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts so more people can find us. See you again next week.